we put this panel together is because we've been reading so much about what's happening in China. And if we were to believe those numbers, we've read things like, robot production has been growing 31% year after year, and 70% of businesses are now using AI. Of course, we don't know if that's valid or not, but at least that's the perception. And here we just wanted to make sure that we have you know, uh, we are able to understand what technology is. So we wanted to help our manufacturers understand where technology is right now, how they can start adopting AI tools, and specifically when it comes to manufacturing, what we have like two companies that we kind of who got in touch with us who are specifically making AI powered solutions for manufacturing. So we have them on the panel and they can talk about what they are building and see if, that feels something that you all would be interested in adopting down the line. So with that, let's start with introductions. I'll introduce first myself. I'm Pavin Kothari. I'm the Chief of Programs here at SF Made. We have a few other folks from SF Made, including Steve, who's our CEO, and Hillary, who's our South Bay Engagement Manager, and Laya, who's our youth program manager. So, Jermaine, I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Jermaine Carter Gibson. Happy Small Business Month. Today is the first day of Small Business Month. I do local engagement for the California Office of the Small Business Advocate. We are an independent office within the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development.
Uh, Vikas, do you want to go next?
Yeah. I am Vikas. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mito. Mito develops smart glasses and software that helps you capture tribal knowledge from experienced workers and scattered systems and use it to train and onboard new employees faster and make better decisions on the factory floor.
And Suresh.
Hey, my name's Suresh. I drive business development at Physical Intelligence, which is a foundation model lab building general purpose robotics.
Okay, so before we get into the specifics of what these companies do, I wanted to start with a myth busting question. So, to all the panelists, what is one thing that most people get wrong about AI? What's a misconception that you all would like to correct? Um, Vikas, do you want to get started?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest misconception or like one of the top headlines that you see online is AI is coming for your jobs. And at least in manufacturing, the ground reality is that people can't find enough trained workers to work in the factories. So it's sort of the opposite to what the mainstream narrative has been. And I think that's the biggest thing. So like rather than being afraid of AI, I think you should look at it as a productivity and productivity tool. And if you rephrase it that way, then it becomes less scary. So I would say that's the biggest one.
Jeremiah?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Absolutely. Also, AI is not a silver bullet, right? And AI is more of a concept. And so a lot of folks are like, when I'm in the field, they're saying like, if I just get AI, it's going to fix all of my problems, right? But AI is integrated into tools. And so we're hoping to educate businesses on finding the proper fit for the AI tools, the budget that you want to spend on it, the process that you're trying to create or improve, and what's the return on investment before jumping into an AI product.
Suresh?
Yeah, I think for me, the answer is just understanding the bitter lesson in the sense that it's amazing how many things actually generalize, and many people think that AI can solve a portion of problems, but we're seeing over time that the more data and the more compute you have, the more your ability to really solve end-to-end workflows.
So let's get a little bit more detail from you, Suresh. Like you're working on building robots for micro movements, or I don't know how you would describe it, but tactical movements. Can you describe a little bit in more detail what uh, Pi is working on and how you're building out the capabilities?
Yes, I wouldn't describe it as micro movements. I would probably describe it more just like building out robots that can deal with and respond to variability and change. Like for decades, robots were essentially concatenated if-then statements. You can put a robot in a really precise position, and if it was able to do a particular task, like handle a certain object, it could do it over and over again. But if anything changed, whether it was the size, the shape, the lighting, then everything would kind of fail very quickly. And so these are very brittle systems. The robotics that we're seeing emerging today and the automations that we're seeing emerging today, which are still very early, by the way, um, are more like these like toddlers in a way that are learning from their own experience. So they might be folding laundry, which was forever, the hard problem in robotics because a shirt deforms, it folds in many different ways, and no two shirts are truly alike in terms of size and shape and color. Um, and so, it's able to learn from how it misgrasps an object and then correct itself for the next time. It's able to pick up, different types of tools and, do things like peeling a cucumber or cutting a carrot. And so its ability to respond to that change, and the way it does that is through this transformer, and the same thing that drives what OpenAI and Anthropic have been able to do is what drives the core innovation behind what Pi is able to do. Just with more data on a far more diverse set of things, we can generalize on different environments and tasks.
Great. Can you give that real life example of what you're doing with Dandelion Chocolate? I asked that because we have Brian here who's from Fef Chocolate, so it kind of will, paint the picture of like what actually is getting done today.
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with a business across the street from us, just literally 100 feet away, called Dandelion Chocolate, and we actually fold boxes for them autonomously. We do about 1,500 boxes a week, and so it's not it's not necessarily put a humanoid in your environment. It's actually just a 6 degree of freedom arm. It's like a very simple thing you can get off the shelf. But what happens is when we create an AI policy, we're able to load it into the robot and have it do a task like fold a box, which previously you would need to buy very specialized automation in order to have. And that same robot, one day will be able to do many, many different things, like replacing the chocolate bar in the box, wrapping, gift bags, and placing envelopes in there for VIP boxes. So it's amazing how, in 6 to 9 months, the ability of the robot to go from barely knowing how to fold a box to now doing it for 17 hours straight has evolved.
Great, awesome. So, moving on from, physical intelligence, that's the name of Suresh's company, to human intelligence. On Thursday, I heard, after our discussion, I heard Dandelion Chocolate walk up to Vikas, and they said, like, we have this one person in our team who knows all the machines, and they've been working with us for decades. And we want to figure out how to create a bot for that person, because once that person leaves, like all that knowledge leaves with them. And I'm sure other manufacturers also have similar scenarios where few people hold all the knowledge that's not in the SOPs because it's just in their brains and they just know these things. So Vikas, I know you're building a solution for this scenario. Can you describe what your company does?
Yeah, this is a common problem we hear across like all sorts of like manufacturing companies, sheet metal manufacturers, biotech labs, all different sorts. And the problem is that most of the knowledge that these experienced workers have has never been translated to a document or software. And plus, like it's very scattered. Some of it is in their heads. Some of the decision making is captured in past tickets where like something broke down and it has an incident report of what was done to resolve it. So the information is scattered all over the place. Our goal, or what we do, is we have smart glasses, which are essentially glasses with a camera pointed forward and some sensors in them that helps us capture how operators complete a certain procedure. From those video frames, we are then able to extract the exact steps they did to complete a certain procedure. And whenever there's an exception on the factory floor, we also capture how did they handle the exception, how did they diagnose the problem, and how did the actual workflows happen on the factory floor. So we use this knowledge plus all the other software knowledge that the company has from their manuals, SOPs, tickets, etc., to create like a company brain of sorts. So if there's issue on the factory floor, we can use this company brain to like isolate, diagnose the issues very quickly and give you a solution. These guides can also be used to train and onboard new employees faster. So these guides are multimodal guides. Essentially, they are steps on how to complete a procedure with like short clips of how that procedure needs to be completed on your factory floor with your equipments. So a new employee can just go through all the guides and get trained to be ready for the job quicker.
Great, awesome. So can you talk a little bit about how are you using the information you're collecting from each of these companies? Are you using it to create a better model for everyone in the same industry, or does that stay within your company? And Suresh, maybe you can also talk about how the data you collect, how it's helping you improve.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I mean, I can. Oh, sorry, Vikas, you can go.
all right, I'll be quick. So we don't have like like an intelligence model that's powering it. We build the harness on top of other models and the company's data. So and we don't train anything to be used by the companies on one company's data. So it's pretty tenant scoped. But all the learnings from one company on how the harness itself could be improved does apply to other companies, but we don't train on one company's data for other companies.
So people like, so if someone feels like they have intellectual property in their processes, that remains within the company.
That remains their intellectual property. We do not mix data between two companies or use it to train any system.
Suresh, you want to address that?
Yeah, I think from our side, data is obviously at the core of what we do. Models need data in order to generalize across a diverse number of things. But for us, we really look at it in terms of tasks and scenes. If you come to the office at any point, you'll see robots doing tasks of all different varieties. And Pavan and Steve, you guys have seen it before. You see robots folding clothes. You see them, again, cutting cucumbers, peeling carrots, holding boxes with dandelion. We have computer assembly tasks, putting flexible PCBs and inserting them with micromillimeter level tolerance. And so the diversity of the tasks is very high. And then also in terms of the scenes and environments, we have warehouses across San Francisco and then internationally as well, where we recreate teams of businesses and we prototype them. And so the easiest example here is also Dandelion, where we recreated their internal space in their warehouse. We put up fake brick walls and everything, and it's a cool thing to see. But we use that as a place to mock up an environment where we would later go in production and really be able to have a robot running in the real world. But before that, it's always easier to have your own version internally. And we've done these for a number of businesses, including a florist shop as well. But that's our way of kind of doing the crawl before you walk and run. And the cool thing for businesses with this type of data collection is we can't promise a robot being out of business in the next 3 months. I think with Dandelion, it's a special case because they're right across the street from us. But what we can do is show small businesses the ability to see like the frontier of model progress, saying, if these are the tasks that I'm doing and here's where it's happening, and if we have some instructions on the tasks, we can really show you, what is the ability of a model today to do that task, and it'll help you prepare for your business and also potentially automate things that you don't want to be doing. And we're happy to try to work together on that.
Great, thank you. So Jermaine, will come to you. You've heard now these two gentlemen talk about the technology that they are working on, feels very cutting edge. You speak to a lot of small businesses across the state, and a lot of them are manufacturing businesses. So Claire just informed us we had a number wrong. There are more than 70,000 manufacturers in California.
Correct.
We believe at least 30,000 of them are like small manufacturers. So when you're speaking to businesses and what do you hear from them when it comes to adoption of AI or just understanding AI or just the threat of AI? What are you hearing from small businesses?
Yeah. What I would like to know for those that are in the room, are you currently using AI in your business? If you are, put one in the chat. If you aren't, put two in the chat. So I'm seeing a couple different things. When I talk to businesses, um, I see some ones, I see some ones. Okay, good. So everyone is using AI in their business currently. That's awesome. What I'm hearing from businesses is cost, for one, of the things that they want to integrate into their business as being a hurdle, right? Everyone says cost or access to capital is the first thing that comes out when you ask them what's going on. But second is uncertainty. Second is these tools, is it the right tool for my business or is it the right AI integration for my business? Can I trust it? And is it going to disrupt what I'm already doing, right? Because the process that I have in place works. If I integrate AI, would that disrupt that? And then second, I'm hearing a lot of workforce issues. The capacity to train the workforce, that the workforce is not coming in with enough AI training or enough technical knowledge, and they may not have the infrastructure in place. Jeez, just pulled these all the way out of my ear. They may not have the infrastructure in place to train those employees, right? And so trust matters. Trust is huge in this space. And so I'm hearing a lot of that. And what I tell them is, the infrastructure that's put in place by the state is the SCALE network. SCALE standing for Success, Capital Access, and Leadership for Entrepreneurs. We have well over 100 centers throughout the state that we provide funding to that give free one-on-one counseling to business owners to help them answer these questions and help them find the tools that are right for their business. And so we highly encourage them to get in contact with that. And I'll put the link in chat.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So Vikas and Suresh, I want to ask you all the same question. As y'all are speaking to like potential clients, what hurdles do you think they are facing to like commit to working with you? What do you commonly hear?
I think the biggest barrier for it's mostly on the vendor side, I would say. Like manufacturers are very practical. They have very practical needs. They need the tool to require very little setup time. It should not disrupt the floor. It should not pull in a lot of people from their IT teams, etc., and deliver value quickly. Those are their needs. So I think if the vendors today can't meet them where they are, they expect like perfect data, large IT team integration, like weeks of forward deployed engineer, like integration effort, and that doesn't really work with them. So if you can meet them where they are, then I think they are more than happy to try everything. In fact, like in most of our conversation, we have found them to be very well informed and they come up with very sharp questions.
Suresh?
I think for businesses to work with us, it's quite easy actually. And given I don't know if you gave this context, but we're a well-funded research lab. We raised about $1 billion from some of the best investors in the world. But really, the reason is because we think robotics is an integrated and hard problem. And so 90% of the team here is machine learning PhDs and people who are excellent at things like hardware and runtime software. And so we tried to make it really easy for businesses to engage with us at especially just doing the low list things like instructions and videos and, helping us understand the tasks that you might have. Usually what it starts with is a site visit. Just seeing the robots in person at the office is like the easiest way to understand what's going on. And then, it kind of there's this moment where you kind of brainstorm, what if I had one of these things and what would it do in my business? It's not always super obvious because humans are doing so many different tasks, especially at a small business level. But once we kind of give you some criteria like, oh, let's try to make the payload relatively light, and anything that's dexterous manipulation, meaning you're using your hands to do it, um, it starts to become a little bit clearer, a couple of the use cases. And then what we'll do is just take a few days and try to prototype those tasks for you. We'll order very similar materials and show you, I guess, some of the ways and strategies that a robot might approach it with. And again, we're not selling anything to anybody right now, but usually pretty light and low lift to work with us.
Yeah. So I think what that reminds us, we did talk about it. Steve and I talked about it when we visited your offices, that we should organize a tour for our manufacturers. Like you said, I think you have to see what you're working on to actually believe. We were
Totally.
really mesmerized by the whole operations of all these different robotic arms kind of doing different tasks. So I
Totally.
think that's like one takeaway for us would be like to organize a tour to your offices. And if you're open to it, we would love to bring
Yeah,
some.
definitely.
Yeah.
I think probably actually the hardest thing now that you mention it is for a long time, robotics has been a lot on the traditional automation side. And so people who have had to deal with that are usually very burnt out, um, and for good reason. But what we try to always say is we're not targeting the markets of tasks that traditional robots do. It's really like where are humans using their own labor, that last mile where, something could not be automated or it didn't make sense at the scale of your business. And so like switching from what do robots do today to what are humans doing today that we could, essentially replicate with the robots is more of the frame of mind.
I would definitely like to be on that tour as well.
Of course.
Absolutely. We will invite everyone for it. It is like it feels like walking into a futuristic museum of sorts. Mm. Um, all right. So maybe I'm just going to go through some of the questions and then we'll open up for audience question in a bit. So one question that we have is, or one thing that we keep hearing from businesses is around one of their pain points is compliance. And we were wondering how does the use of AI or use of your technology can help businesses with compliance? And Jermaine, for you, like how are you thinking about compliance when some of the work is going to be done not by a human but by a machine, and machine and humans working together? What new compliances have you all even gone that far to think about how you're going to uh, create new compliance or new regulations for businesses? We just heard, just after like maybe 2 or 3 years of Waymo's driving in the streets of San Francisco, DMV just figured out how to ticket Waymos if they don't uh, comply with the rules. So we just wanted to see if that is a conversation you all are having in the governor's office or thing. So first, let's start with the Vikas and Suresh to see how they think their solutions can help businesses with compliance.
Oh, our solution is not built for compliance, but we do help the businesses with some aspects of compliance. For example, with process compliance, making sure that every worker is doing the procedure in a certain way. If they're not wearing PPE equipment, we can flag it to them, and we can help reduce some of the clerical burden that comes with like documentation, etc. So, for example, manufacturers are required to like update their SOPs once a year, and there's a scramble before the audit to like prepare everything, make sure that everything is updated. And we help make that process continuous. So SOPs are continuously updated, all the documents are continuously updated, and really help reduce the documentation work at the end of the year. But there's like a lot of companies across the AI stack other than us that also helps with like other aspects of compliance. Like AI has made the cost of running them very low, and you can easily run compliance across, like if you have software like SOC 2 compliance or any other sort of compliance, there's tons of companies out there.
I think in our case, there's a lot of examples of places where you don't want humans to be doing tasks. And the example that I always go to is visiting a lithium ion battery recycling company a couple weeks ago. And if anything catches fire in a facility, the human like life is at risk. And so if you can do as much of the decommissioning process of recycling a battery with robot hands instead of human hands, it changes the lives at stake. And that was something that like their team kept saying over and over. It's like it's a safety concern, and they're very onerous about it for that reason. Um, but I think broadly, like there's a bunch of these types of things in the world where you want machines doing them, and there's places where you want humans doing them too, where care is and like love is kind of required. Like I can totally see that. The compliance section, what always pops out to me is places like deep sea cleaning. Like you don't want to send deep sea divers onto a ship and paying for the insurance of them having heavy equipment on them and then biofouling and removing the side of a hull. Um, and then the battery recycling company is another example. Actually, even with box folding, that task, if you're doing it for like hours a day, it can get very, very like onerous. And if you're doing any stacking tasks, it really takes a toll on your back.
And how do you like, so I know I had a food business and there are some food businesses in this room. There's like the health department requires you to like follow really strict uh, set of um, procedures, and they have to have gloves, you have to have clean spaces. So when your robots are working, like how often are they washing hands? Like because we have to, like that's one of the health requirements, is like how do you force that, or
Yeah,
is that not a concern?
candidly, we're probably a little bit away from robots being in the food industry properly. I think we'll start with baby steps, but we'll start with food safe grippers to make sure people can actually eat things that the robots kind of are doing. Um, but those are all areas where we have to figure out what the path will look like. I would say that the point in time we're at is like we're just discovering that these things are becoming capable. It's kind of like that GPT-2 moment, even earlier, maybe GPT-1, but the curve and the rate of progress is enormous. I think I shared this in the last kind of call, but the co-founders, when they started the company, put out a memo saying that they would take 5 years to get to where we were in September, and the rate of progress since then has been insane. And so, food safe grippers and having robots wash their hands is all part of the plan, but a little bit down the line.
So Jermaine, like you want to talk about how you're thinking about compliance when you hear, these things where robots are on the floor doing things. You're on mute, yeah.
So to add to that point, AI and technology are moving extremely fast, right? And so what I put in chat is SB 53 that the governor recently signed. And so from the state's perspective is they're not looking to slow down or harness innovation. We're looking to just put some guardrails in place that can address the concerns around transparency, safety, accountability, responsiveness, and fostering that innovation, right? Because if from the state's perspective, if we overregulate it, we're going to slow it down, right? And so it's definitely top of mind. And, the governor has been active in, putting things in place to be able to just place guardrails on the process and allow for the brightest minds in the world to continue to innovate.
Okay. I'm going to open now for questions from the audience. So if after hearing all what they had to say, what has come up in your minds that you want to know more about?
Yeah, I guess I have a question for the panel. First of all, and Suresh, it's interesting and encouraging that Dandelion is sort of taking the lead with some of this technology. I'm encouraged to hear that. But I guess one of the thoughts that comes to mind is just sort of like both the economics and the subtlety of the task and how you sort of look at those trade-offs. I mean, in a kind of low to medium volume environment where you have a lot of high touch, like fine chocolate production, where the products are very delicate, they're slightly variable. I mean, how do you guys think about the break-even point where that upfront cost and kind of the rigidity of robotics are justified over what we use today, which is a very flexible human labor solution, especially when you're talking about defect detection and gentle handling is required?
Yeah. So I mean, one thing about this current paradigm is the robots that we're using, and it's not everybody, but at least for us, are completely off the shelf. You could order it to your house in a week, and it costs $3,000 for an arm. So it's not the really really expensive stuff that you might see. What makes it interesting is because the intelligence is there. It can use these like very non-precise motors, very non-precise like uh, parts, and do very precision-based tasks. I think the example you gave about putting a chocolate in a box is a good one because it's a place where we had a lot of trouble initially. Um, and we've been very surprised about how far pure computer vision can take us. Like having cameras on the wrist and on the head of the robot essentially has allowed it to do way more than we thought was possible. A good example of this is in our computer assembly task. We put a flexible PCB inside of a certain very small area, and we didn't need any force sensors for that. But then for chocolate bars, where it was kind of more deformable, where if it breaks, we don't necessarily know it off the bat, but where a customer does not want a broken chocolate bar. Those are places where force sensors are probably the way that we go forward.
And so for a manufacturer such as ourselves who wants to start implementing a solution like that, what sort of budget should one be thinking about today and then maybe 6 or 12 months from today? And until we get to a point where then you look at the economic trade-off of that versus a human labor sort of alternative and where it starts to really make sense.
Yeah, I would say right now it might be a little bit too early in the industry to be considering it as a replacement for human labor. Um, and we honestly wouldn't encourage you to think about it like that. Think of it as like supplementation, because the models are still really young today. Like going from the GPT-2 to the GPT-5 phase, it happened quicker than we ever thought, but it also still took a couple of years. And so where we are right now is still very much in that paradigm of it's working and we have baby steps going, but we're not sure exactly how fast it'll be. And so it's hard for me to tell you how to prepare for it, except come see it yourself and, see what it can and can't do and observe where it's making mistakes and where it's doing phenomenally well and develop the intuition yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Anyone else have a question? So maybe just piggybacking on what Brian just asked, because what kind of budget should companies be thinking of if they want to start putting, your solution in place?
Our solution doesn't require a lot of like upfront investment other than the classes. So it's mostly like a software-based model where you pay per operator per month. So it really depends on what your like most pressing needs are. If you think like your training and onboarding is really bottlenecked, and you really need something to increase it because you're backlogged in your manufacturing capacity for many, many years, then it's a very subjective call on how much you want to invest towards that. The other equation is that if you have like 2 hours of downtime on average on your factory floor, how much is that worth to you? If you can bring it down to like 15, 20 minutes by making troubleshooting really faster. So it's a subjective call on how much you want to invest. But for us, like there's no capex investment in our case. It's a software budget.
So let me ask this question maybe a different way and everyone can chime in. Like if a company had a budget of, let's say, 50K, where should they invest first? Like, should it be in training the employees? Should it be in purchasing like some kind of a AI solution? Like, can you all give some advice if someone wants to start on this journey? Where should they be looking at first?
So I'll go first. If you have 50K and you're ready to make an investment, the first thing I would say is slow down a little bit and learn first, right? I did this personally for myself is I made the mistake of, okay, AI is coming. There's no getting away from it. Let me just dive all the way in, right? And I spent unnecessary money on things for myself and for my business that I didn't need, right? I needed to slow down and evaluate, well, what am I trying to accomplish? Where do I want to be more efficient at, right? And find the appropriate tool to do that. I think over the last year, I would have spent half as much money. And so I would recommend investing time into learning first. You can do that through our Scale Network partners. You can do that through our Accelerate California partners. There's 13 innovation hubs across the state. There's one there in San Francisco, Chico, Sacramento, all near you guys. I would invest in knowledge first before I make that big investment.
Can you put a link for the 13 innovation hubs?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. That's great advice. Any other questions from the audience? I mean, I can ask another one. So I know we are in midst of the primary season for our governor's race, and the governor's race is happening this year. What questions should we be asking the new governor? If anyone has any answer to that, and this is open to everyone in the room, like when you think about the future and what policies might impact this, what types of questions should we be asking the governor to know how we can influence the policies of the future? Does anyone have it? And this is open to anyone can answer this.
I wouldn't speak to I'm not going to speak to questions to ask, but I've been to 3 governor forums now. What I would encourage you all is to be involved, right? A lot of ethnic chambers of commerce are putting on governor forums. You know, things are really ramping up where the the governor candidates are starting to go over the things that they want to accomplish. I really would encourage you all to get involved in that and listen to them and find out what they're actually trying to accomplish, because it's going to be consequential to the business outlook moving forward. It's going to be consequential to our office. It's going to be consequential to where the funding goes, right? And the way that we try to assist small businesses. And so I would highly recommend that the small business community get involved, find out who's, mission aligned with you, and spread the word on that.
I know it came up in conversation with Claire on Wednesday. Jermaine, can you also talk a little bit about the Made in California program?
Absolutely. And I'll put the Made in California link in there. But Made in California is specifically for manufacturers, and this is a marketing initiative to be able to put on your products and let folks know that they are made in California, right? You're going to see a full rollout in the next 2 months, I believe, of that program. And so I'll put the link in chat so you guys can read up on it and get on the mailing list for when it goes live.
So I think Lena has a question. Vicky, did you have a question? Okay, Lena's question is, what can small businesses do over the next few years to be in the position to harness this technology when ready?
What I would say, and I sound like a broken record, guys, I'm sorry, but this is where all the money is invested in. I would say connect with one of our Scale Network partners to be able to get you informed and ready to ramp up, right? There's millions of dollars that are put into this network to provide free one-on-one counseling with business owners. to help you to upskill yourself, upskill your workforce. And I would highly recommend interfacing with that to be able to get you the information you need.
Yes, Lara.
Yeah, I have a question, maybe more for Suresh, about physical intelligence, because we've seen like that you guys are like open source, and that I guess like helps like this technology like moving forward, and it helps like this like early adoption that you were mentioning, especially like with local manufacturers. But as you like grow and you train the model, we've seen with like OpenAI and other AI companies that they had the same model and then they kind of like close things like a little bit off. So when are you expecting to act more as a close like business, because all the funding that you're receiving is for like research, and then once you are like prepared, I guess it's gonna be just like another
Yeah.
kind of business. So, and that can impact like our like local makers in like a budget perspective. So
Yeah,
I wanna
it's a good question. I mean, at the end of the day, we are a venture-backed company, and like the goal of our lab is right now the competition is not companies but science, and so we have to focus on doing research that like unlocks an opportunity for us and the rest of the world. We think the fastest way to make progress on this is by being mostly open source with the work that we do, which is why our website is really just like a series of research papers. If you go to pi.website, that is what it is. And if you come to the office, it feels more like a research lab than like some startup. And that I would say is like our core ethos today. What we think is that if the rate of model progress increases and these things get really, really good, there's going to be a point in time where things get closed sourced, but the open source models already are doing phenomenal stuff. And so really I think it's a way for the community to like get quicker and better at understanding what is actually happening on the frontier, rather than a strategy that we always should be adopting to.
So if we are ready to close out the session, I would like to ask the last question that we ended the previous session on, which I loved the answer that everyone gave, is if you're talking to a senior in high school today, what advice would you give them about how they should be thinking about their education and career? So
Well,
because
I'll start.
yeah, Jermaine, yes.
I'm a girl dad, so I've got a daughter, a freshman at Howard. I've got a junior, and I've got an eighth grader, and I'm encouraging them every day to interface with AI and to get themselves up to speed and to learn it and to interact with it. And the goal is to keep the human in the loop, right? And so we've got to be knowledgeable, and we have to be comfortable, and we want our young people to do so. And so what I'm telling my daughters today is that there's no getting around it. And so let's get used to it and put it into our daily lives.
Vikas?
Yeah, I mean, the rate of the progress is so fast that it's all the advice on what to do to be in a better position after 4 years always falls flat. But I think the best advice that I can give is to like just stay curious, explore a lot, and continue to develop like critical thinking and thinking from first principles. That's the best advice.
So that's what I think is the main challenge, because we get all the answers we need. We can put it into Claude, Cowork, or ChatGPT and get the answers. How do you tell people like what should they be doing to develop the critical, or young people to develop the
You can also prompt Claude to say, I want to become a competent adult, and I want you to answer my questions in a way that fosters my critical thinking skills.
Oh,
Problem
that's a
solved.
good prompt. Yeah, that's an
I
amazing.
love that prompt.
Yeah. So Suresh, like, yeah, what would you add to?
I mean, I think the greatest gift that I was given as a child was being put on a stage and having to do public speaking and um, you know, caring about specific things and being able to be passionate about causes and stuff. Like, I think a lot of the core beliefs for me are just like things that have always been useful. As skill sets will continue to be useful, and it'll be amplified by a lot of the technology we see.
Yep. That's
And I want to add to that is these interpersonal skills and these public speaking skills and being able to be an actual human are extremely important, right? And in all aspects of the work that we do and the work that's going on. And so I encourage my kids, like, absolutely get on stage, speak, go meet people, shake hands, look them in the eyes, right? That when a lot of the questions are going to be able to be answered, those are the things that are going to be able to separate you in the workforce and just in the world.
agreed. So, last chance to ask questions from this panel. If not, Suresh, because I know Jeremiah has posted a lot of links, and I hope we can export this chat so we have these to share with the broader community. Feel free to share your contact information if you are comfortable with it, if someone wants to follow up with you all after today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Friday, everyone.
Thank
And
you.
happy,
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
yeah.
For hosting.